Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome. Well, now, as you know, because I've publicized it, I've got a guest tonight who has the name Tim Doran. He is an administrator on a Facebook group that he and I haunt, and he turns out to be a very nice fellow. He's a kindred spirit, but he's got an interesting story to tell. However, he's going to be late. So this is me covering for him for a few minutes. It's good news, really, because his daughter, I don't think he'd mind me telling you this, does skating, and she's in a contest tonight. I don't think he was aware of this at the time we set the date for our show together, but she's got through. She's got through round after round. And so he's being delayed because she's successful at skating. And he's a big family guy. So he's got his priorities right. And that was some of the topic that we were going to talk about, because I also have quite a history of family too. Anyway, he won't be here for half an hour or so. So it's just me. And some of you may have watched my Global Atheist News show, which has just finished. And you may be aware that I've been doing that since the beginning of the year, since lockdown. And if you look back through the archive, you'll see that my early attempts were pretty amateurish. But I have got better. So I can do more clever things with the software than I could at the beginning. Anyway, the other show that I've been doing for a long while is FreeThought Hour. And if you look at the archive for that, you'll see that I've had, I think, 29 episodes of guests, very interesting guests, many of them. And they've been all sorts of guests. I don't specialize in any, I'll talk to anyone. I don't specialize in any particular type of guest. I'm personally a non-believer, but that doesn't mean I'll only talk to non-believers. So I've had many Christians, quite a few ex-Christians. I've had some Muslims, and I've had a couple of Pastafarians, and a Jehovah's Witness, and others who I can't remember. So it's been fun. I enjoy talking to people, and I get a small audience for the live stream. They sometimes ask questions, and then subsequently, when the event becomes a podcast, it attracts a larger audience. And I think my biggest audience was nearly 300. That was when my guest was Nuria Khan, who is also on my team of Global Atheist News correspondents, our reporters. So she's a very keen campaigner for women's rights because, of course, she was a Muslim, and now she's come out of Islam. She realizes how very misogynistic that religion is. All religions are misogynistic. Let's face it, they were all invented by men, for men, but Islam is particularly so. It's rather extreme in the misogyny stakes. So who have we got? Frank, you're watching me now. Thanks, Frank. Do you want to come on? Do you want to have a chat with me? Are you in front of your camera? Can I send you an invitation to join me on screen? We haven't talked for a long time, have we? Would you be up for that? Thank you for your kind words about my global news. I'll put Frank's comment up here. Thank you, Frank. I wonder if we're going to get a visitation from Otangelo Grasso tonight, because he's a fairly regular viewer from Brazil, isn't he? Oh, Frank, you're going to come. Excellent. Here we go. I am no, yes, send it. I think he's a bit confused. But there you are. Click on that, Frank, and you should appear shortly on my screen with me. For the viewers, Frank is a resident of Kentucky, not a million miles away from the infamous Ark tourist attraction. So the last time Frank was with me, he and I talked about that a bit. He finds it quite difficult living in the Bible Belt, I think, where not being an avid Christian, and you stick out like a sore thumb. In fact, I don't think he's I think he's in the closet. Certainly in some of his circle. So are you coming to join me, Frank? I am. No, yes, send it. That's a conflict of what do we call that? Contradiction. Here he is. Frank, how the devil are you? Can you speak?
I can.
Oh, great. I thought you were muted for a minute. So welcome. It's nice to see you, because it's some months since you and I had a chat, isn't it? How are things in Kentucky? Can you hear me? Yeah? How are things in Kentucky?
Things are pretty good, all things considered. No, I can hear you.
Good, good. And you're unmuted. Good. I can hear you too when you're not muted. That's fine. Now, if you speak now, we will hear you.
Well, I solved the problem by getting off of YouTube. I was getting feedback.
Ah, yes. You can't watch yourself and be on the same computer. That's true. Yeah.
I think we're okay now.
Pretty good. Good. Excellent.
Anyway, you were asking about life in Kentucky. Yeah, this is the armpit of the Bible Belt. We all agree that we are the buckle of the Bible Belt here in Kentucky.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. So I was saying I wasn't sure whether you had come out of the closet and been, let people know that you don't follow the Baptist church, which is prevalent in your area.
I've been so far out of the closet for so long.
Yes.
I'm lucky to still be alive, I think.
So you're active, aren't you? You do, if I remember rightly, you sit at a table as an atheist and invite people to come and question you. Is that right?
Well, that's what I do now. My phone number is easy to find. I invite folks kind of like I'm a ask an atheist kind of guy. But way back in the 1980s, 1985, I think it was, I had a 4-night debate with the Creationists, a formal debate in a standing room only facility here. Yeah. And then a couple of years later, I had a 2-night debate about is the Bible the Word of God, and so I've been way out of the closet for a long time.
You've been well out. Yes. Well, thanks for clearing that up, because I couldn't remember. I've just been explaining that I've had so many guests now. It's all a blur. I've talked to so many people, I can't remember any of the facts about any of them.
No problem.
This is probably a result of being a vast age too. That wouldn't help. So,
right.
Have you been to the Ark encounter lately?
I've driven by the Ark. I've not had a strong urge to go on it, but there's so many videos, really good videos and good write-ups about what the Ark is like. And I personally know one of the guys that leads the case against the Ark.
Oh yeah,
a fellow named Dan Phelps here in Kentucky. That I don't really need to enter the Ark to I think appreciate.
Yes.
Maybe that's. But I have been to the Creation Young Earth Museum.
Yes, yes.
And it's. I must say it's really very nice. But both the Art Park and the Creation Museum, the Young Earth Creation Museum here in Kentucky, are attractive facilities, very well kept, very well presented. They are kind of a treat for any who believe as they believe.
Well, America does theme parks very well, doesn't it? I mean, it's had years of experience since Disney set up the first one in California.
Yeah.
And so if there's any country where you'd expect a good job to be done, it's got to be the US of A. So
that's true. Now, the one in California, I think they moved to Texas, and they may have moved again. I'm not sure. I'm talking about the Creation Research group. But what we have here in Kentucky by way of Young Earth Creationism in a museum is the best I've seen anywhere in the country. And I've visited most all of them.
Would your friend who takes up the case against Young Earth Creationism be interested in coming on my show?
Dan Phelps, I suspect he would. I'll be happy to inquire and then let you know.
Yes, please. Yes, please, indeed.
He would make a good guess, believe me.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like you to do that. Yeah.
I will do that. I'll check that out and let you know.
Great. Put me in touch. Yep. So I was telling the audience, if we've got one, that Tim Doran, who is my official guest for tonight, is going to be late. He's going to be about another 15 minutes, because his daughter is sailing through the classes at the skating competition that he's attending with her. So that was entirely unexpected, I think.
Well, as soon as he gets here, I'll vacate and you.
Well, you don't feel you have to. You might like to have a chat with him too. He's an interesting guy because he started out in a seminary. I haven't found out much more than that about him, but now he's an admin on Unbelievable. I think one of the Facebook groups that I haunt. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe does he go by the name Tim Doran?
Yes.
I'm trying to think. I mean, it sounds familiar.
Yeah, you may have bumped into him too. Yes. So he's undergone a journey from seminary, probably a trainee pastor. I don't know. We'll find out more when he joins us. To atheist site. Well, not specifically, is it? Unbelievable is a mixed site. It's for theists and atheists, and we discuss things there. So anyway, he has come out as an atheist, and he's an administrator. That site has a mix of administrators. Some of them are Christians or theists of some sort.
The site Unbelievable.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Unbelievable ? Yes, because that's a spin-off from a radio show that we have in this country, which is also called Unbelievable, which goes out on a Saturday morning, and it's from a channel called Premier Christian Radio. It's based in London, and it's been broadcast on the airwaves before internet podcasting, going right back to the early part of this century. And I was actually a guest on that. I think it's a half-hour show. And I was a guest on it way back in 2013, when I was in opposition to a Christian apologist whose name is Jonathan McClatchy. And so I'm there on that radio show, and the internet being what it is, you can still find it. Although at the time, I was trading under a pseudonym. Well, you know how, particularly in some parts of the world, in some cultures, the word atheist it's not a very pleasant word.
It's a big turn off for some people.
Yes, that's right. So, and some of my relatives, my then wife's brothers and sisters, and her father, and so on, since they are Christian to varying degrees, you know, of devoutness. She is not a church goer herself now, but she would, if you asked her, she would come firmly on the Christian side of things as her belief system. And you can ask her. I mean, she won't come on screen, but she's in the house somewhere. Anyway, because I didn't want to alienate them, you know, her and my relatives, her relatives and my relatives by marriage, I chose not to be myself in my activities. So I had the pseudonym, as I'd written a couple of books, and I was using the pseudonym Elliot George, which the books are still available, of course, on Amazon. And you may recognize that Elliot. Yes. Elliot George is a reversal of George Eliot, which was a pseudonym going back to, I think, Victorian times, when there was a female writer, Mary, some simple name, but and she wrote some books. One of them was I'm not going to think of it, am I? Not Far from the Madding Crowd, but a book of that sort. And she, at the time, of course, no publisher would accept a book written by a woman, because women didn't do that, did they? Women just stood by the sink and did the washing up and had babies. So she adopted Elliot George as her nom de plume. So when I was looking for a nom de plume, I twisted around. So she adopted George Eliot, and I twisted around and called myself Elliot George.
Sorry about that. My dog's getting excited. Could you hear him barking? Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
Might be my wife is coming home.
Ah, yes. They welcome their fellow house members, don't they?
He knows which one. He knows which one of us feeds him. Gets excited when she's.
Yes. When I was a boy and we had dogs, the dog used to know when my father's car was driving up the hill long before we could.
Yep.
He would prick up his ears and get up and go and sit by the door, and we'd think, what's going on? And he knew.
Yeah, it looks like it certainly looks like ESP. You know,
yes.
Because I can look up the street, I don't see anything, but sure enough, here she comes. You know.
Yes, that's right. Yes, they have enhanced senses of smell and hearing. So we're thinking of getting another dog. Actually, it's something to make me go out and walk.
We used to have a lot of cats. And my wife was also had a rash all the time. So she went to the doctor to get that checked out. And he did some tests and he said, I've got bad news. You're allergic to cats. So now we are dog lovers. Yes.
Well, that was the right direction, I think. A good move.
Yeah.
Yes. I should never forget when I was very young, I read not Coral Island, not Treasure Island, but Coral Island. And there's a very sad bit. This is a castaway on a remote island. And he he makes himself somewhere to live and starts, killing the local creatures to feed and makes a fire. And he's venturing further into the center of the island, and he comes across this old hut. Obviously, a rotten old hut. Somebody lived here before. So he goes into the hut, and there's the skeleton of a man, and laid on the chest of the man is the head of the skeleton of a dog. And that's, obviously it's fiction, but it gives the perception that people had at the time he was writing of the difference. Because meanwhile, outside is the man's cat. Because, of course, these were ship cat and ship dogs that got wrecked. And the cat is out there having a high old life, killing the local creatures and eating them, and caring not about the death of its master. But the dog had laid down and died with his owner.
Well,
so who was?
Humans have dogs for pets, and cats have humans for pets.
Yes.
That's how it is.
Yes. Yes. I heard a different version of that. I can't remember who said it, but it was dogs have owners and cats have staff.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. They know who's boss.
Well, and I like them both for their different characteristics.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But when it comes to, I think, faithfulness and appreciation,
Yes.
something like love, it takes
Yes.
a dog to deliver that. Dogs
Yes.
can do that.
Yes. Yes. Whereas cats, they're takers rather than givers. They like to be stroked, to be fed, or whatever. Yeah. So
it's just a good thing that they're cute and furry.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, they wouldn't get any of the affection that they want.
No, absolutely. Yeah. So, what are your plans for the near future? Because I'm trying to keep it secret that FreeThought City is about to burst upon the unsuspecting world. I've got the Kickstarter is loaded, and I've just got to complete the registration of the company in this country and the bank account, and then we can go live on the Kickstarter, run up to Christmas with the add-ons that are in the campaign that I should be adding to it. And I just don't want to let it out yet. I want to be able to say, here's the URL. Now you can go to it. I don't want to.
You're getting close, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it'll happen in, if not next week, the week after. I'm scheduling notionally the 24th of November, but I think it's going to be the 25th, more likely. It's somewhat out of my hands. I've got to wait for a response from the Kickstarter bosses.
There's a lot of people involved behind that, right?
There is.
I mean,
yes.
I remember one Zoom meeting that I sort of sat in on, and I don't know all those people.
No.
And I think there's even more key people maybe than was involved in that particular Zoom. That's been a couple of months ago.
Yes, it has. We have been, our plans have been delayed, unfortunately, because I had COVID, which pretty much wiped out September for me. I mean, I survived it. It wasn't any more than flu, but it did exhaust me. I had to go and lay down a lot because it does sap the energy. And this is somebody who's had all the vaccinations possible, But so that wiped out September pretty much. And then my partner in crime in California, Jason, he broke his arm, which meant that he couldn't do anything on the keyboard. That slowed us down. So unfortunately, we've been delayed. But it will happen, and it will happen very soon. And I'll tell you about one of the early things that I'm going to launch in the campaign, the Kickstarter campaign. It's a song, right? And the lyrics of this song were written by Richard Dawkins.
Oh, good.
And the music was written by a great musician in Australia who I've been collaborating with online, whose name is Brian Gervais.
You mentioned him before, right?
Yes, he was in the Zoom, I think. And I've done a video for this song, so we can release it, first of all, as an audio and subsequently as a video. And I'm still waiting for a clip of backing singers. And there's an outfit in California that I'm trying to contact, who I've been collaborating with before, called Voices of Reason.
I'm making notes because at my age, I need these notes. So.
Yeah, I use my phone for making notes. So I'm contacting Voices of Reason to ask them to do the backing vocals.
That sounds really good. I mean, it sounds like it's going to sound really good.
Well, it does. I'm just sorry that I can't let you hear it yet because I want to keep it until the moment is right, and then
I want to be as excited as everybody else at the same time. So no problem.
Great. Okay. Well, marketing is a strange science or art. I'm not sure which. So we want to get everybody piled up, gasping for it, beforehand. So we've got a database of email addresses and we've got Facebook groups and Twitter accounts and so on that we will prime prior to releasing this. So I'm quite excited too. And, I'm an Englishman. I don't get excited very easily. I think our race is famous for its sang-froid.
That's true.
So I've got to be cold-blooded.
Fair enough. No problem. I mean, it's all going to come together at some point. And
yeah, sure. So you're a key person. You're in charge of curating the academic content.
Yeah, I've been looking for, the means by which to start building what exactly is I'm needed to build in terms of.
I can send you some links.
Yeah,
I can send you some links to look at, and so we've got you on that, and we've got Rulon Downey in near the Canadian border up in Washington. He's going to curate the movies for the cinema. And
mine was going to be academic. Not sure what the word was. I don't have that note handy. Academic resources, I guess, or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, curator of the academic material content. Yes.
Content. That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
If I can find that's the word that's written down in here somewhere.
That's your official title. Yes, and you will be featured in the Kickstarter. And I think I've got an audio recording of you that you sent me to say how keen you are to be part of this.
I'm looking forward to it. I think I said, pleased to be or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Great. So apart from that, what have you got planned for the future? Have you got anything lined up for Christmas? The question I get asked around about this time of year is, do atheists like Christmas?
Hey, we love it. And it's a big family thing. We put up a Christmas tree and everything. There won't be any. You won't find any religious ornaments on that tree. But
yes, well, it's something that has happened, at least in Europe, the Northern Hemisphere Winter Festival, since long before Christianity. The Christians came along and stole it.
Exactly.
Yes. So we used to call it Saturnalia. And that's probably going to be the title of another song that we're going to launch as part of the campaign for the Kickstarter. So
that sounds good.
We'll see how that comes along. I'm the lyricist for that one, and Brian is doing the music. And
music is very powerful. And
it is, isn't it? Yeah. I used to be in a band many, many years ago, and I loved it. It was fantastic. And I also used to play in the school band too when I was a teacher, and the school was putting on musicals. We did Godspell, and we did Oliver ! You know.
Right.
And I played for those and some other ones we did, and it was terrific fun.
Yeah, it really is. And my recreational drug of choice is music.
Yes, yes.
It's legal too, you know.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes. They can't touch you for it. Yes.
That's right.
Did you have any particular genre of music?
Well, way back in the, I guess, the early to mid 60s, I was a jazz drummer and played in a band here in town.
Yeah.
And when I joined the Army, I wasn't able to take my set of drums with me. So I bought a guitar and I learned to play a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm not really a performer to speak of. But I like jazz, principally straight ahead jazz, good solid standard stuff.
So are we talking about what I would call trad jazz or modern jazz?
Well, you tell me. Dave Brubeck Quartet, for example.
We'd call that modern jazz.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of jazz I like. Quartet, small ensemble.
Yeah.
But also I like classical music. I like British rock. I think the best rock music was produced from the 60s through the 90s, mostly coming out of England.
Yeah.
And I'm quite fond of that music. And I drove this last Sunday. I drove 5 hours to hear an organ and a trumpet in a huge Catholic cathedral in a town that's 5 hours from here. And then after it was over, I drove back. So that's how much I like music that in some cases most people wouldn't think would be very, very good, or few people would think, well, yeah, I'm willing to drive a 10-hour round trip to hear good organ trumpet music, but there aren't many of us like that. But I just like it all. The only thing, you know, anytime you change doctors, so you got to get a new doctor. You got to fill out a lot of paperwork for them before they'll see you. And one of the things they ask is, do you have any allergies? And I usually write in there where it says that country music, you know, and so I'm allergic to most country music. But if Willie Nelson is singing it, I will listen.
Well, what about, you see, it's a blurred area now, isn't it? Because if you go back to the 50s or the 60s, country music was a distinct genre. It was banjos, it was slide guitar, it was dripping with emotion songs, and it was a particular taste.
And that's when I got my allergy for it.
Yes.
But you're quite right. It's rather different these days.
Yeah. And it wasn't your taste and it wasn't my taste either. But then we had country rock.
Yeah.
We had, the Eagles, for example.
Yeah.
And that's an entirely different kettle of fish.
It got better. Yeah,
They're great. The Eagles. I love the Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, there's some really good stuff comes out. Now, Louisville isn't that far from Nashville, which is the heart of country music.
Yeah.
And so we get a lot of it around here. And I'm not allergic to today's country music.
Yeah.
But I still put that when I go to a new doctor, just for the laughs. And after I turn my paperwork in and I'm sitting out in the waiting room, I can hear them. There'll be a burst of laughter coming from the glass window,
Yes.
So I know somebody's getting a kick out of that.
Yeah, they just read it. It just down to the answer. Yeah. Well, music, as you say, it moves a lot of emotions. And what I regret is the way, like we were saying, the Christians had stolen Christmas. They grabbed Saturnalia and used it for their own purpose. And they've tried to do this to music as well, haven't they?
Oh, yeah. And now I got to tell you, there is some religious music that I very much like.
Yes, of course.
And on any given Sunday here in Louisville, I may be in a church. If I've been tipped off that an organist is going to do a Bach piece that I like, for example, I'll go in and give it a listen. I'll sit near the back and I'll slide out when they're done. But...
Yes. Well, they don't own it.
Right.
And they just make use of it as their own propaganda. They know its power and they've used it for their own ends to try and attract an audience and keep a congregation coming for next week's show. Because in the early days, of course, there wasn't an alternative. Very few villages had a theatre. They certainly didn't have a cinema. It had been invented. So going to the church to hear the organ was a treat.
Sure enough. And there is a lot of power and a lot of emotion. And secular emotion and religious emotion, I think they're all about the same. And so a lot of religious music, especially when there's no lyrics, I especially like instrumentals because your mind can go where it wants, whereas lyrics makes you go this way or that way.
Yes, that's right. It's funny that I say hello to Otangelo. Hi, Otangelo. Nice to see you again. Thank you for coming. Yes, you're right, because I'm like you. I can listen to a song almost without hearing the words. I listen to the voice as though it's, a vocalization, a human vocalization, but I don't really register the English, the literal meaning. And for that reason, I love a guitar break, because a guitar can vocalize much more than many other instruments because it's got consonants, whereas a saxophone can only say honk. A guitar has a way of starting a note that can vary, and it can sustain the note. It can wobble the note on the way through. It can slide up to another note, or it can be percussive. There's so many. It's a talking instrument.
It absolutely is. I agree. I haven't heard it expressed like you just did, but yes, everything you just said makes excellent sense. It jives with what I hear.
Yeah. So give me a guitar solo, well played, rather than a saxophone solo any day, I'm afraid. Because it's got consonants. Saxophones only have vowels.
I agree. Good point.
So what does Otangelo say? He's saying Satan stole music from God. Do you believe in Satan, Otangelo? Give me a reply in the text. I'm not going to invite you to come on camera tonight. Not yet, anyway. You see, people who don't believe in God don't believe in Satan either. So there's no alternative source for somebody who's a non-believer.
No, we earn any due credit, and we earn any due blame.
Yes.
You know, it's we
Yes,
succeed
yes.
or we fail.
Yes, and that was an interesting device that the Christians came up with, because they managed to separate responsibilities. Good ones, God's responsible for, good things. Bad things, Satan's responsible for. So you can never blame God. You can only praise him. He's there to be worshipped and glorified, and Satan gets all the rough stuff.
Yep. If only the real world were like that. But
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah. God definitely got the best of the deal there.
Otangelo, he's your guest, right, for the show?
No, he's not. No, Otangelo is one of my audience. He's a regular audience member.
I think I know his name from Facebook.
And my guest is telling me that he's joining in a few minutes. So Tim will be here shortly.
When that comes, I'll step out and just listen.
As you wish. Okay.
I don't want to take up any of your guest time, or we'll miss something.
What's Otangelo saying here? He's saying that's he's saying that's because he is the best. Do you mean Satan? Or let me guess, you mean God, don't you? Yeah, Otangelo came on my show a while ago, and he's a lovely guy, and he's completely in a different position from me. You know, I consider the evidence for God to be inadequate, but Otangelo thinks he's got it. He thinks he has the evidence for him.
Yep.
So we had an interesting conversation, which is there in the archive. So, Otangelo, let's plug the show that you came on, the episode that you were in.
Yeah, catch up on those.
It was some time ago now. Let me have a look in my archive. I've got my laptop open here. Let's see. It's not going to come up easily, as it was so long ago. Where is he?
Well, if he's on Facebook, that's where I got his name. I mean, that's why I recognize his name.
He comes to the same. Oh, here we are. It was, when was that? Episode 23. I think that's going backwards, 23 episodes ago. And it was on March the 27th. That is a long time ago, isn't it? And it's had 120 views. So we can recommend people to go and see the interview that he and I had together. My show was called Ask an Atheist back then, but I've changed the name to FreeThought Hour because it opens more doors. You know, I don't have to have atheists. I don't have to play the role of atheists. I can just have a chat with anybody, and that's what I like doing.
Well, that's a good name change.
Yeah.
You'll get a wider audience on account of that.
I hope so. Yeah. But it's quite difficult.
Not only that, people who surf the web and they'll come across your videos, you know, and If atheist isn't in there, more people will stop and take a look. There'll be some,
Yes.
otherwise it would just work, turn on to the next one. So
Yes, yes. So Tim has arrived. He's here backstage. So
okay.
Give me a wave if you're ready to come on, Tim. I saw you taking your mask off. I'm not sure whether I'm going to bring him on anyway.
Okay. I'm going to slip out then and watch it from YouTube.
Okay, yeah, if you like.
I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks for the chat, Frank. And I'll keep you in touch regarding FreeThought City.
Appreciate it. Hang in there.
Great. Tim, how the devil are you?
Hello. 1 second, I'm switching over to my Bluetooth. All right, there we go.
You're doing an outside broadcast, I see.
No, I'm just walking to my car. I just left.
Well, you've got a pretty good signal. Anyway, congratulations. Yeah. Congratulations to your daughter.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, she's been practicing really hard for that.
What did she
I'm just switching over. I think I was on my Wi-Fi, well, from the arena, but
yeah.
I think I'm switching over to 4G, so it might cut out.
I think that's just happened.
So,
yeah.
Anyways, can you hear me?
I can. Yes, indeed. You're fine. You're well pictured and well mic'd. Wait a minute. You've just frozen. Maybe I put the hex on you. I can hear you. Now you've come back. Good.
John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, you froze for a minute, but you're back now.
I don't hear you right now. 1 second. Yeah, I thought it might cut out.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hello, testing, 1, 2, 3. Do you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
No, yes? I don't hear you.
Hold
on a second.
I can... It's your Bluetooth, probably, to your earpiece, your earbuds. I did an interview.
Yeah, for some reason I don't hear anything.
Can you hear me now?
1 second here.
If you try it without your earbuds, try it directly from the phone speaker. Can you hear me? You remind me of I did an interview from the car a week or so ago when I was invited to be a guest on
Just messing with the audio settings here.
Radio. We can hear you. He's gone. Okay, so as I was saying, I did an interview from the car a week ago yesterday when I was invited to be a guest on Voice of Islam radio. And they wanted to have an atheist viewpoint. So I was in the middle of driving my daughter to school. And well, I wasn't in the middle, I just delivered her. So I went and sat in a car park and we had this interview via mobile phone and radio. So you can hear that, the Voice of Islam interview. I've clipped out the 14.5 minutes that included me, and it's on my FreeThought channel, FreeThought Productions. So try you again, Tim. Hello, how are you now? Nope, he's gone again. So what have we got here? Frank can hear us both. But I don't think Tim could hear me. That was the problem. So yeah, technology is fine when it works, isn't it? So what shall I do now? What shall I oh, he's coming back. Try again. Hello, Tim.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Can hear me. I can hear you. and you can hear
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Where
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I don't know what happened there. Sorry about that.
we've got systems go, so let's take advantage of it. Okay.
Okay.
So,
All right.
folks, guys, ladies and gentlemen, Tim Doran, my guest.
Hey, guys.
Finally welcome to our show, Tim. Now, I met you on, it wasn't Unbelievable, was it? I think it was another, was it Unbelievable? Or one of the other Facebook theist versus atheist groups?
That's the main group that I was part of.
Oh, we've lost your volume now. Can you get nearer your mic? Hello?
Can you hear me now?
No, hardly. Very faint.
Hardly.
Can you get nearer your phone, maybe?
No,
Gotcha now.
You hear me better?
Yes, I don't know what you did, but it's working better.
It's supposed to be in. Okay. All right. Trying to do this from my car. All right. You can hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think I don't know if we may have met on religion discussion or on Unbelievable a while ago.
Hmm.
I know you've been in a
Something
few
like-
groups.
Yeah, I get about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I noticed that you were liking some of my comments, and I was agreeing with some of your comments, and I thought, here's a kindred spirit. I'll see if I can get to know him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, I definitely think that we agree on a lot of things. And then we all have our disagreements on some things, but that makes things interesting.
yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever been religious?
No.
Interesting. Okay. That's yeah.
Well,
So what caused you to be religious or like be interested in this stuff then?
well, that's a good question. So we agreed when we chatted before that you might interview me as much as I interview you in this session. So okay, so that's a good question. The situation here in the UK is a bit different from America. America has much more religiosity.
Yes, a lot more.
Last century, when I was born, in the middle of last century, religion was pretty much gone. We had that anachronistic thing. We had an established church, but because it had all the privileges, it didn't have to evangelize. So the audience just drifted away. It got complacent in its position, conducting coronations, having bishops in the government, and control of a lot of schools. They didn't need to work, it seemed to the leaders of the Anglican religion at the time. And so they didn't modernize. And gradually, the audience that liked their older style, the wheezy old church organs, that audience dwindled away and stopped. They died, they didn't come anymore. And they hadn't modernized to attract any replacement younger people. They were the rock musician style of evangelicalism hadn't come to this country at that time. So there were no replacements and the Anglican Church was shrinking. So that meant that lots of children like me, raised during that era, weren't forced to go to church by our parents. We came from a family where uncles and aunts never talked about church. The only time that we got involved in church was if there was a wedding, and that was a party, with a bit of churchy stuff at the beginning.
Right.
And of course, if there was a funeral, and of course the kids didn't get taken much to funerals, so I escaped. I was raised in a secular condition. You weren't, were you?
Oh no, No, I no, religion has been a really big part of my life since I was 0, basically.
Wow.
Yeah, I come from a family of 9. My parents were Catholic.
Hmm.
Uh, and I was the only one that was not baptized in the Catholic Church.
Oh.
Um, they they left the Catholic Church because they were drawn. They wanted something more from religion, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, and so they explored different Protestant denominations.
Yeah.
So I kind of moved around, and was exposed to, several different churches
Uh-huh.
growing up. Um, but I would say that religion was like my parents' biggest hobby.
Yeah.
They were involved, like they would have Bible studies at our house all the
Oh.
time, and
Mm.
we would go to church 2 to 3 times a week growing up. So I was huge. And then I
Mm.
homeschooled for religious reasons,
Yeah.
um,
Mm.
which, that there's a lot of curriculum for homeschoolers that is very much religious, like
Yeah. Yes.
whether it's, literature or spelling or, um,
Yes.
they incorporate all sorts of religious things
Yes.
while you're
Yes.
learning other things.
Yes. All
Um,
the examples when you're studying English language, all of the examples come from the scriptures. What a coincidence.
hey, there was all these literature. Basically, it was like all the Old Testament stories, that I would read from like first grade on.
Mm.
Of course, they would sometimes like sugarcoat it. It wouldn't necessarily be like verbatim. It
No.
would be, the this the nice stories. Um,
Disneyfied.
yes, I know. I mean, even like the story of Noah and even the story of Moses.
Mhm.
Like, if you think about it, if like it really happened, both of those stories are terrible.
Yeah.
Um, but growing up, I actually didn't really view it as bad. Um, and they were framed like, as good. And
Yeah.
like the enemy, like the Egyptians, like, oh, all the firstborn Egyptians got killed. Like, yay, that's awesome. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for
it's
killing all those kids.
it's funny. It's funny how you can focus on the heroes in the story and gloss over the fact that God had just drowned the entire population apart from this one family.
Yes, yeah, the Noah story. Oh, that one's really bad. But like the Moses story is bad too. But we don't like. Oh, God sent all these plagues and all these people got killed, and but then they like Pharaoh's heart is hardened. Like, oh, good, now we can send more plagues. That's great. Like, why? It just seems so senseless. But when you're when you're immersed in it, though, it doesn't really seem like a big deal.
That's right. When
It's
everybody's going along with it, of course you'd be the odd man out if you questioned it too much.
Yeah,
So
and I didn't question it. It it just didn't even occur to me. It was just like, yeah, that's great.
it's a cool
God knows
story.
what he's doing, and like the Egyptians are the bad people, so who cares about them? Or even the all the other people that get killed in the stories, in the Old Testament. Um, they're they're framed in such a way where they're almost like dehumanized.
Mm,
And
yes,
who
yes,
cares if they get killed, and who cares if they're taken as slaves,
yes,
and who cares if like
yes,
all this bad stuff happens to them? Like, they're not
yes.
God's people. Like, it doesn't matter.
Dehumanized is a good word for it, or demonized even.
Demonized, yes,
Yeah.
demonized. That would also
So,
be a way to put
mm,
it. Uh,
so,
yeah,
so you followed this path of Christianity, escaping from Roman Catholicism into various types of Protestantism up
Yeah.
to a seminary?
Into what?
A seminary?
Yeah.
Tell
So
us, tell us about
so
that.
because religion was like such a central part of my life growing up, I I thought that it would be good to go off on my own and like explore it away from my family.
Yeah.
So I went down to Oklahoma. I'm in Minnesota. So if you're not
Mm.
from the US, it's like about 12 hours away
Yes,
down
yes,
south.
yes.
Um, and I wanted to find out why I believed what my parents believed, essentially.
Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
like, why was it so important to them?
Yes,
And it was also really important to a lot of my siblings. And
yes.
I wanted to find out, like, okay, like this is like the most important thing in life, but I want to know why for myself.
Mm.
Um, and
You
so
want
that's
to
why
you
I
want to
went.
see you want to see if you can own it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I want to see if I can own it. And over the years, it, I I was like changing what I believed. I mean, not like the core things, but trying to make sense of things because a lot of times things just didn't make sense. Um, so yeah, things would change over the years, and even as a teenager, um, at first I was just taking some general classes, um, and that caused me to question some things in the Bible.
Hmm.
Uh, and then I was like, yeah, I want to go to a Bible school and and figure out what's what and why do people believe this.
Uh-huh.
And so I did.
So
That's where I
how
met my
long?
wife.
Well, that was a big plus, obviously.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was good. Things,
But how long did you stay with the Bible school?
so I I graduated from there, and
Yeah.
then I went to another religious school called Northwestern. It's it's
So
Billy
you,
Graham's school. I don't know if you're familiar with Billy Graham.
oh, yeah, yeah, definitely. So you graduated, was that at 16, 18, 21?
21. Yeah,
21, yeah. So that was
yeah,
like the end of further education, a degree.
yeah. And then I went back again.
Yeah.
I got another degree, and then it because it was a religious university, it still had a bunch of religious classes that went with it.
Yes.
Uh, so I had my share of religious schooling, um, and I also went to like a private Christian high school,
Yeah, yeah.
which
That's
was very
something that
immersed.
that's something that you have in the States that we don't have here, really. You have,
Interesting. You don't have religious high school?
well, I won't say we don't have, but I was thinking of religious universities because you have Liberty
Ah,
University, for example. That's
yeah.
out and out Christian university. Uh,
Oh, I see.
and there's one in just outside Boston where an old sparring partner of mine is a professor, and so this is the recognized universities churning out degrees specifically labeled Christian. That's a bit of a US phenomenon, I think.
Oh,
We
interesting. I didn't realize that. That was so normal to me because a lot of my siblings went to Northwestern and Bethel, which are two large universities in Minnesota that are religious.
Yeah. Mm. Now,
Uh,
our universities, I won't say our universities are completely secular because, of course, many of them began back in the era of Henry VIII, and everything pretty much was compelled to be religious back then. So, for example, Oxford and Cambridge still have their religious colleges, and a lot of their colleges, which are accommodation based, are named after saints, for example. But nowadays, those two universities particularly you'll be able to study anything there. Evolution, there's no bars, that they are some of the best, most scholarly academic places to get educated, and free of religion. Of course, you can still go and do a theology course there, or a philosophy and theology course there. And one of my acquaintances, Cosmic Skeptic, is currently at Oxford University finishing his degree. He's been doing YouTube programs since he was about 16, while he was still a schoolboy, and has amassed a very large audience.
I'm a big fan. I really like his channel.
Yeah. He's a bright lad, isn't he? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. But he chose to do his degree. He wanted to do philosophy, and he had to choose another subject to go with it. And he chose to do theology because it seemed like, a good match. But it's not sort of endemic in the university that there is a syllabus and you will get this amount of Christianity or any particular denomination. It's free to choose, make your own combination of subjects, which is not the case in the American Christian universities, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's different. Do you know if are there a lot of creationists in the universities?
Here?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about. I'm trying to think now. There's what's his name? There's a maths professor who is a Christian apologist. I'm not sure. He's an Oxford professor. Can't think of his name right now. Somebody might come up with it in the audience in a minute. But he's. I don't know whether he's a creationist or not, but he does go about presenting the case for Christianity. Whether it's the creationist version or not, I can't tell you. But he's very much a Bible man. So no, it's different. But what happened to you? How did you, having come up through this, I don't know, sausage machine of Christian pastor making education, how did you get out of it? What happened?
Oh man. So it was like a combination of a lot of things. I was really active in the church. Sometimes I would speak on like a Sunday night or something. I taught Sunday school. I would even go out evangelizing, like went on missions trips. I went down to South America. I went to Mexico.
Yeah.
Went to Canada. And you see a lot of things, and a lot of times I would notice that what I was teaching and what I was taught was not aligning with what I observed.
Yeah.
And when I went back to Northwestern, I was doing it when I was a little bit older. I started at like 27, and yeah, by the time I was like 30, I was a creationist.
Old or young?
Pardon?
Old or young?
Well, both. Initially, I was a young Earth creationist, but then I took an astronomy class, and I learned about supernovas and how far away all the stars are and how long it takes stars to explode and all that. And I was like, well, that's really strange. Like, how is the light that we see from a supernova arriving here on Earth when it's like hundreds of millions of light years away or even further? Like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And then why would a star go supernova when the Earth is only 6,000 years old? That doesn't make any sense either.
No.
And I emailed, I don't know if it was like Answers in Genesis or something. I emailed one of those creationist organizations.
Yeah.
And I asked them all these questions because I was really confused. Like, what's going on?
Yes.
And they replied like, well, God just made all the lights and the stars to be exploding and getting to the earth. So basically it made it look like it's like hundreds of millions of years old, but he just made it look that way. And I'm like, well, why would God deceive us like that?
Yes.
Like that doesn't seem right. Like, and why would God make a star that essentially exploded and then the light got here? Like, just created it that way in the middle of exploding. It didn't make a lot of sense.
No. It sort of makes out that God is a con artist who's trying to.
Yes, exactly. And not only that, but like the whole universe like revolves around us, like our species.
Yes.
And God is deceptive about it. And I'm like, what? Why? Why would God deceive us like that? That doesn't make any sense.
I want to admire a God who's not deceptive.
Yeah. Like what else is he deceiving us about?
Yes.
So I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So that got me thinking. But still, it didn't like stop me from believing. It just made me think, well, I should be so confident about what I believe. And I should continue to ask questions. So a lot of years went by, still as a creationist. One of my older brothers, he was not particularly religious, and he would like give me evolution books. And and this Mike, if you hear this, I love you. I thought like, man, the devil's using him to deceive me. Like, like evolution is bad. It's deceiving Christians and all that. And I was the kind of person that would read all sorts of creationist books trying to debunk evolution. I got like this series, like amazing creatures that defy evolution, and like debunk evolution. Like I had like all these DVDs and stuff that I got from church and read all these different books about it. Yes. Anyways, like, so that was me. But then I went to Northwestern, and one of my professors there was, he was not a creationist. Like he was a Christian. He was he believed that God basically guided evolution. But he asked the class, was like, oh, how many of you are creationists? And like, gosh, over half the class raised their hand. And he's like, so there was a whole chapter on evolution, and then he was talking about the scientist named Francis Collins, who wrote some books about evolution and basically God directing it and all that. And I was not open to anyone talking to me about evolution. I simply just thought that like they were being used by Satan or something, Yeah, exactly. Yes. But because this professor, like, he had really gained my respect. My dad had passed away from cancer, and it was a rough time. And he was like there personally for me. And because that, I was like, okay, I should respect this man. Like he earned my trust. He earned my respect. I'm gonna like take a listen to what he has to say and like read with an open mind. And he was like, I would suggest like, reading some Francis Collins books and watching some of his lectures on top of like the lessons they already had about it. And so that caused me to look with an open mind about it. And so I slowly like, well, yeah, maybe, yeah, it does. Like, then I started reading more books about it because I was like, wow, this actually makes sense.
So
Um,
it sounds to me as though you've moved on through Francis Collins and gone on beyond, because he's still a Christian.
yes. So I was really into like doctrine, Christian doctrine, and the doctrine that Francis Collins brought along, I didn't feel like it really made a lot of sense
Mm-hmm.
um, with his view. But
He
what
is.
did make a lot of sense was how he presented the evidence for evolution. And then it got me curious to read more books.
Yes, yes. He is odd in that. I mean, he's not mainstream in the slightest, but he's unusual in being
Yeah.
quite an academic scientist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who has retained his Christian belief. He's an outlier. He sticks out.
It is. So the thing that I got hung up on, eventually I just was like, yeah, like the evidence is overwhelming and like we evolved. Yeah, I agree, Frank. Just reading your comment. So I accepted it. I'm like, yeah, like there's no denying it. Like we definitely evolved. Like the evidence was just so overwhelming. But then I was trying to make sense of Christianity in that light. I understand, like all you Christians out there, I definitely understand that you can be a Christian and believe in evolution. I get that. But there's all sorts of problems that I had with it. One of the things that I got really hung up on was how species, it's not like Homo habilis gives birth to Homo sapien. It doesn't work that way. It like evolution is very gradual and it occurs in groups. So I'm like, wait a minute, Adam and Eve, what's up with that? And you know, people would say like, oh, like that's easy. Like they just gave birth and the baby had a spirit. Like, well, what? That seems very arbitrary. So they're basically the same species, but one has a spirit and one doesn't. So what happens if like the spirit species has sexy time with the same species without a spirit? Like then what? Like it seems very human centric. Like so I'm like, well, there never really was a first human. So where do you draw the line of like, well, this animal goes to heaven and this animal doesn't go to heaven, and this animal goes to hell and this animal doesn't go to hell? Like the mommy and the daddy, Homo habilis, like they don't go to heaven or hell. They just die and they turn into dust. But their baby Billy, somehow he goes to heaven or hell. Like that, it didn't make any sense to me. And I was hung up on that for like a couple years. And I know that maybe sounds silly to some people who haven't. I couldn't make sense of it. And so I started reading more books to like try to figure out like, you know, I don't think I have all the answers here. I used to be so confident about my Christianity and now I'm like, wow, it doesn't make sense. And so then I began to start questioning other things about it, just because things weren't adding up. And it wasn't like I just woke up one day and I'm like, oh, I don't believe in God. It was like
it is a journey, isn't it? It's a process. You can't suddenly switch it off. You've got to go through all this analysis. That's why they have a word, deconversion.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, this caused a lot of problems in my personal life. Because all my friends and family were devout Christians. I was teaching at church.
Mm.
And like I started to feel guilty about the things I was saying.
Yes, yes.
Um,
You felt
like
that you were
the words
deceived.
coming out of my mouth was
Yes,
like, I don't think I believe this.
yes,
Like
yes,
it, like,
yes.
like, is this bad to? I'm telling these people these things, and I'm struggling with it inside.
Yeah,
So I like I resigned. Like I'm like I can't do this.
yeah. Mm.
And it was weird. Um,
Were you shunned?
you know, I I didn't really tell people.
Mm.
Um, in fact, like still a lot of people don't even know. Um,
Oh,
I'm I'm not I'm pretty outspoken online if it's a private group. But if it's public, I don't really talk about it much.
yeah,
Um, unless I know the people, then I do.
yeah,
And depending on like if I feel comfortable or not.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just because like so many people in my inner circle, like religion is so important to them.
well,
So
that's
it's
right.
like,
I, I can tell of a similar sort of thing. In fact, I was speaking with Frank before you joined us
yeah,
about this because Frank came on and we had a chat uh, to cover for you not being available at the
yeah.
show.
Thank you, Frank.
Yes, yes. Frank's an old friend. He's somebody who's been on my show before. So he and I were talking about this, and I was saying that I was lucky because I never got involved in a religion, so I didn't have to get out of one, and of course that meant I didn't get shunned. and
Right.
but poor people like you who you had to sort of stand against this wall of opposition amongst your friends, relatives, colleagues, community. And do you know, this happened to me sort of maritally because I married a woman who was and is, she still claims to be a Christian, and all of her siblings and her father and the whole community was strongly religious. And so I I wrote my books under a pseudonym. This is what I was talking to Frank about earlier,
Oh,
because I didn't,
interesting. Oh my goodness.
like you, I didn't want to upset any apple carts.
Yes, and I'm in the same boat with my spouse.
Yes. Mm.
Yeah, so I don't want to upset anyone,
No,
especially not my partner.
no, of course not. No. So maybe we should keep this a secret meeting.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. No, I just try to be sensitive to people because I do realize that um religion is very important to people.
It
And
is. Yeah.
it's very personal. Um
It is. Yeah.
and so like that's why I typically just talk about it in designated areas,
Hmm.
like Unbelievable or
Hmm.
other groups where like, okay, you're a Christian, but you're there for a reason.
Hmm.
Um, you want to have a conversation about it.
Hmm.
Um, but if you don't want to have a conversation about it, that's fine. I'm like, I don't want to, disrupt your belief if you don't
Just,
want to have have a talk about it, that's fine.
yeah.
Um,
Well, you can't really change people's minds. The only person who can do that is themselves. So,
yes, and that, John, is actually something that helped with my deconstruction because I really, really wanted to believe and make sense of things.
yeah.
Um, and that that may sound like crazy to you and to some other people, but like I just felt like my life was falling apart, like because there were just so many important people, like my spouse and
Mm.
my mom and dad and my siblings who, like, that was really important. And it was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. Like, I cannot force myself to believe this. And then I'm like, wait a minute, like, you mean I can't just choose what I want to believe? Like, a lot of Christianity, I mean, I know there's some denominations that don't believe this, but like the central doctrine of Christianity is believe in Jesus, believe that he rose from the dead, believe that he's God, all that. And I'm like, wait a minute, I can't even choose to believe that if I want to. And if I don't, I'm going to be sent to hell. Like,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's something beyond my control, and God's going to like punish me for that.
That's right.
Or
Worse-
not save me. Yes,
worse than
because I
that-
sinned.
Worse than that, people who have never been told about this situation, that they have to believe in Jesus in order to get to heaven, they don't get to heaven either. And just because they've not been, they were brought up in China or somewhere where they weren't
Yes,
told.
that was another thing that bothered me. Like, that bothered me as a Christian for a long time.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I tried to believe. I remember having meetings with my pastor, and like hoping that he could, explain to me and make things make sense to me. But it, like, all the talks I had with him, it just like it made it worse, because all the things that he said were just not good explanations for the things I had problems with. So not being able to choose to believe in Jesus was like, oh, I can't even do that if I want to. And now I'm going to get punished. or to put it nicer, now Jesus is not going to save me because I can't even believe that he's God.
Yeah.
So that was a big, that kind of was like the last straw. Me trying to believe and then not being able to, and then not even being able to choose to believe in it, even though I wanted to. It was sort of the nail in the coffin. I'm like, I remember talking to my wife about it, and I was like, I'm not sure if there's a God or not, but if there is one, it's not the one that we heard about. Like, and I don't think that it cares about Homo sapiens. Like, we're just another species.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, once you, as you were saying earlier, once you recognize that there was no first man or woman, once you recognize that, there's only been a gradual change from ancestors to descendants and never a starting point, then it becomes difficult to think somewhere along this line, baby Billy, I think that was the expression you used.
Yes.
Got a soul injected into him and started to believe in Jesus. It's why?
Or Yahweh or whatever. Yeah, like it's just so silly.
It stretches credibility, doesn't it?
It really did. It really did. And after that, I was just stuck. It was just like I was stuck in doubt, and it only got worse the more I dug. So the whole like me trying to get my belief back, that I think that was like, that just did it. Because like, okay, all right, God, if you want to have a relationship with me, you want to save me, like, and I can't even choose to believe in you, and you're not helping in any way. Like, okay, so maybe you exist, but you don't care about us. You don't want to have a relationship with us. Maybe you're some distant God out there, and okay, that's fine. I will live my life, and you do whatever you do. That was sort of like the gradual process from going like, okay, maybe not, Christianity is not true. Maybe my Christianity is not true. Maybe
Yeah.
Christianity is not true at all. Maybe there's a God. And the more I dug, then I'm like, well, actually, there doesn't even need to be a God.
The question that went through my mind when you were saying what you've just said is, what's he going to save us from? You know? I can imagine that back in the early days of Christianity, when life was dreadful, there was quite a lot of need for salvation. But today, what's the threat? Why do we need rescue?
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of religious people from all over the world. Actually, I just talked to a friend of mine from Iraq. Maybe you're watching right now. Hey, he's from the Unbelievable group. And then I have another friend from Algeria. He's from the other group I run. And they're both practicing Muslims. And I think that some people do need religion.
Yes.
Like, and I don't mean to say that in like a condescending way or anything. It just, I think that some people are just in such rough spots that they need a hope beyond this life, like to keep them going. Because if they don't have that hope, they just see despair all around them. And it's like, well, what's the point of going on? And so,
there is.
I think maybe that's why disbelief is maybe becoming more of a thing because we are in a good spot. I mean, like, not everyone. I'm not saying that life's not hard, but in the last 100,000 years, I'd say Homo sapiens, at least a lot of us, are in a good spot. Like we have running water, we have shelter, we have 3 meals a day. I mean, we have it pretty good. Whereas a lot of people in this world, they still a rough life. And they need something.
They need
to keep them up, keep waking up and pressing on. So I think that religion does a good job of providing hope, meaning, and purpose. And so that's why sometimes, even when I have conversations with people, I'm like, man, should I like talk to them about that? Like, even if they want to, like, am I doing something wrong here by taking away their hope? I don't know. Sometimes I have mixed feelings about it.
That's what I meant when I said you can't change a person's mind. They're the only people that can do that. So
and they can't even either.
Well, no, some of them can't. No, but that's why I don't call myself an aggressive atheist. My thing is I'm a retired science teacher, so I want people to understand how science works. What evidence is and how we do investigations to discover answers to mysteries. And so I want people to think more critically, and the outcome of that is a more rational world with less religion in it. But I'm not promoting religion.
No, I hear you there, and like I'm kind of on board. I guess so. So there's a kind of religious people that don't bother me as much, and all of you religious people, if you're watching, like, I love people, like, so I'm not meaning to attack you, but like liberal Christians, like, they don't really bother me as much as far as their belief system goes, because it's like, okay, like, you have your hope, meaning, purpose, but you're also not like denying reality, and you're not like I don't know, trying to change the world to fit your fantasies.
That's right.
I don't mean that in a rude way, but that's just how I see it. So I I oftentimes like if liberal Christians like I I don't really like disagree with them. I mean, go out of my way to disagree with them. Like, yes, I disagree with them generally speaking, but it's like, yeah, that's fine. If you want to have that view and that gives you some sort of meaning in your life, like, sure, that's fine. Um, but the kind of people that do bother me, I don't, did you watch the Daniel Pikachu versus David Wood debate?
No.
Okay. So that was very interesting. And it was disturbing. They basically both agreed that whatever God said they would do, no matter how horrendous, like they would kill or whatever, like they both agreed on that.
Did they
And
tell us? Did they tell us how they tuned in to what God was saying?
right. No, they didn't. But obviously both of them had their holy book, the Quran and the Bible. And yeah. So that sort of mentality of, doing whatever, no matter how illogical it is.
Yeah.
If God says it, I'm going to do it. Uh, that is a little bit disturbing.
You're not kidding.
And
It's a real puzzle to me, because how are they going to know what God's saying? Because he's been noticeably silent for hundreds of years.
a little silent. Yeah.
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 And why do they feel the need to be his agent? Why do they not have their own self-esteem and make up their own minds? Why do they have to do what this big boss says?
Well, I mean, I know the answers because I was like that. I would have answered the same way they would have answered. Not proud to say that, but that's how I was. I viewed, well, God knows better than me. And I didn't think about like, yeah, but even if God knew better than me and God asked me to kill my kid or whatever, why would I do that?
Yeah.
God knows better than me, and what? Like, God knows what's best for me, but why do you assume that God wants the best for me? Or like, how is that the best for my kid to be killed? Like, sure, there's an afterlife, but why would you kill them?
Yeah.
But yes, I did think that way. So I get where those people are coming from. I just do find it concerning.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to have a conversation with someone, I would prefer to have a conversation with people like that, because if I can at least put a little bit of doubt into them,
Yes.
so that way, when the times come to kill their own child, maybe they'll think twice before they do it.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm exaggerating for effect, but
Yes.
I think you get the point.
Have you heard about street epistemology?
Oh yes, I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, I like Anthony, and I think Doug from Pine Creek does a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever watch his channel.
Well, no, I don't, because I'm in the UK, and so the center of my world is different from yours.
Yes, yeah.
I've got connections to Australia and India and Africa, probably.
Oh wow. Oh, very cool.
And
from being online, or have you been there?
I've been to some of those places. Yeah, I've been to New Zealand, and I haven't been to India, and pretty much all over Europe and all over the US as well, and quite a lot of Africa I've been to. And so I, my focus is not, it's not so USA centric as
yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, interacted with a lot of Muslims for the last several years prior to joining Unbelievable. That was primarily who I was talking to. I didn't really intentionally do that. It just kind of happened. Initially, I just went on these groups to just express my thoughts without having to worry about offending anyone in my family and my friends. Just because I just had so many thoughts going through my head, but I didn't want to, I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. So I just happened to join a group that had a lot of Muslims in it, and got to learn a lot about Islam, which was interesting. Which also made me think, I'm like, man, prior to that, like I hardly knew anything about Islam. And Islam also is like, yeah, Christians are going to hell. And here I'm in America, I'm like, Muslims, like, what do they believe? Like, I have no idea. But I guess I'm going to Muslim hell. Oh, darn.
Yes.
But like, what's funny is like Christians and Muslims, they're both going to go to each other's hell.
Yes.
And I met so many very sincere Muslims. Like, they really believe that. And they they're very friendly, and they like want to save me. Like, oh, it's very nice of you. Like, my mom wants to save me too. Just from a different hell.
I wonder what would happen if a Christian, say, who's been, very good Christian and does get saved and goes to the Christian heaven, can he also, because he knows a few Muslim people and they know him, can he also be sent to the Muslim hell for not being a Muslim?
I don't know. It's like,
does the soul split and go left?
Oh no, my upper soul has gone to heaven and my lower soul has gone to Muslim hell. Oh geez. Yeah. And in my work, I have a lot of Indians that I work with, and a lot of them are very devout Hindus. And so I've been to some Hindu festivals, and they'll like dance out their mythologies. So you know how we have our like Adam and Eve and Moses mythology and Abraham mythology, all that. Well, they have their own stuff. And I mistakenly, like, in my mind, I'm just thinking it's like so out there. Like, of course, it's not history. So I was like, oh, like, I can't remember what I said exactly, but something about like their mythology. And the person I was with kind of got a little irritated. I was like, no, Tim, this is history. This isn't mythology. Like, he really believed that, like, very sincerely believed all these different stories that they were dancing to and whatnot. And I'm just thinking, like, my goodness, like, we have all these different mythologies from all around the world, and people really believe them. Like, oh yeah, there was really an Adam and Eve, and they were naked and they were walking in the garden, and oh yeah, there's really this guy named Moses who split the Red Sea and like sent all these plagues through Yahweh.
They spread out from a geographical center, and they spread like a bacterial colony across the surface of the land, the different belief systems. So you can track back to, there's a very good animation that I could share with you. You track back to Israel in the early days of the Abrahamic religion, and you can see how, first of all, Judaism spread out geographically, and subsequent to that, Christianity spread out. It got a bit further, it reached the northern part of Europe, and then the Muslim religion started, and that spread into Asia initially, and then along the North African coast and up from there into Spain. And then mobility increased, people started to travel on ocean-going ships, and so the Americas got a dose of Christianity for the north and Roman Catholicism for the south. Meanwhile, Hinduism was going down the Indonesian area, into the Philippines. So it's all geography.
It is. I actually love that I love that topic. Reading about the Mesopotamian religions or mythologies and how they really influenced the Bible a lot. There was this. I do you ever listen to any great courses, classes?
I can't say that I do.
Oh, okay. Anyways, I listen to a lot of that stuff. I love it. I listened to this Egyptian class, and one of the stories from Egypt was there was this king. I'm drawing a blank here. He was one of the first kings that built the first pyramids. The first pyramid like caved in, the second pyramid caved in, and then the third one stood. And actually, they used from there. Kings after that used his model of making the pyramids. Yeah. But anyways, there was a story about him. He went out on a boat with a bunch of naked ladies. Well, they had fishnets, and they had a turquoise pendant on them because turquoise was popular back then. Anyways, so they go out on this boat, and one of the ladies drops her turquoise pendant into the water, and she's all distraught because it was King Snefru. King Snefru had given her, that turquoise pendant, and she wanted to have that one. So he's like, all right, I got you covered. So they go back to the shore, and then he gets his high priest, and then the high priest comes, and he like raises his hands and says a spell or whatever, and then the waters part. Yeah, no, can you believe it? So then King Snefru walks down and grabs the turquoise pendant and brings it back to the lady. And then get this, they celebrate, and they have like this big festival, and then the waters crash back down. And I'm like, wow, that sounds so familiar. Like, and that was King Snefru, and he was, I think it was like around 2600 BCE. And then the Moses story, it's all contested on when that was written, but it's just it's actually really cool, just to see how stories evolve over time, and themes and whatnot are like taken and expanded upon and made relevant to those people. But then nowadays it's like, oh, that really happened. Like, come on. Anyways,
well, that's where I come in. You see, with my, I want you to understand science better, because
yes,
it's a human weakness, I think, to love narrative to the exclusion of evidence.
Yes. Well, it's hey, what can I say? Stories are fun.
Yes. But we shouldn't count them as more important than actual facts. I mean, if we went by stories, we'd never have heart surgeons, would we?
Yes, this is true. There's a place for stories for sure, but it just becomes a little. It can be a little dangerous if we start thinking that all these stories are real and living our lives as though they were. I've seen that firsthand a few times, and it can be a little disturbing. There's different degrees that people take these stories literally, and then they base their life on it, and that can cause a lot of problems.
Well, that's right, especially if they believe them so fervently that they want to get to their heaven so desperately they're prepared to blow themselves up and kill a few people on the way. That's really harmful.
No, it is. And then you have like faith healers who they go and they pray for people, and like, oh, I'm healed now, and like, oh, I'm not going to take my medicine anymore. And I've seen that, not online. I've seen that in person. Wow. And that is a thing, and it's very dangerous.
Yes, the outcome of that is invariably unpleasant.
Yeah, it is. I actually had a story when I was young. I had my appendix started to implode. But at the time, my parents were really into healing and like, oh yeah, you we'll just pray. Jesus has got you. And like they waited for days, and um, fortunately, I went in like right before it was gonna burst.
Yeah.
And like things like that, like if you really believe it, and I can understand that perspective, like, oh, like if you have like a level 50 healer, why not just, cast some magic spells and like oof,
Yeah.
like that seems like a great way to live your life if you had that ability.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can
So,
understand the appeal. Um,
so if these people exist, why do we have hospitals?
oh, you should hear all the reasons for that. Oh boy. Usually it has to do with sin. Um, they don't have enough faith. They're sinners. There's spirits that block. Oh goodness, there's so many excuses for that.
I see. So the healing would work if the patient hadn't been such a bad boy.
Yeah, they didn't repent.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough likes on their prayer request.
Yes.
I think you need at least 1,500.
and it's because he was a bad boy that he needs to go to hospital.
Yeah, that's it. That's why, like, people that don't sin generally don't get sick. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Well, you've been fantastic, like I knew you would, Tim, and I've kept you for an hour since you joined us. I know you were
and
late.
I so appreciate your patience. I was so torn because I really wanted to be on the program, but I didn't want to miss my daughter's program, and she had worked so hard for it. So it was like, oh man, like.
Yes.
Anyways, I am grateful that you waited, and it was a delight talking to you.
Well, you're a nice guy. You're a lovely guy, Tim, and I would like to spend some more time talking to you another day.
Absolutely, and I'm sure I'll see you on Unbelievable and other places on the internet.
I'll be there.
All right, take care, John. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.